Chairman, Senator Shaheen impugned my integrity, and she claimed falsely that I was somehow suggesting vaccines are not effective. That was an absolute falsehood. Whether it was deliberate or not, I won't speculate. But it is precisely the opposite of what I was saying and have been saying. Vaccines are effective. I've been vaccinated. My wife has been vaccinated. My parents have been vaccinated. My wife's parents have been vaccinated. I've been urging Americans to get vaccinated. But I also believe in individual liberty. I believe in freedom. It's your damn choice whether you get vaccinated. I think it made sense for me in consultation with my doctor, but you have the ability to make your choice. And the irony is, it is the Biden administration that is doing what Senator Shaheen accused me of doing. When they put out, the CDC puts out this rule, even if you've been vaccinated, you got to put a mask on. It is the Biden administration that are telling people vaccines don't work. I actually understand vaccines do work, which is why that is an arbitrary rule to require people who have been vaccinated to put a mask on. And by the way, we see the kabuki theater here. Everyone here has been vaccinated. As soon as the CDC said that, we saw Democrats putting on masks. Not because the vaccine suddenly stopped working yesterday, but it was working 2 days ago. No, because now it is a virtue signal of submissiveness to wear a mask. I would note none of the Democrats who spoke said one word about my point of the arbitrary demand that everyone in a school wear masks, even though kids have not gotten, by and large, seriously ill or been a provable vector for spreading this disease in significant amounts. This was done because the teachers' unions, the union bosses demanded it politically. But Senator Shaheen also said that our constituents deserve clarity. I agree with that. She described how happy and eager she was when schools required kids to get vaccinated. And you're right, there are vaccine requirements. There are different diseases, and each state can determine what is required concerning vaccines. So in the interest of clarity, I would just ask Senator Shaheen, do you believe there should be a vaccine mandate for COVID-19? And do you believe the government should issue or participate in a vaccine passport? I answer those unequivocally no. And I would ask Senator Shaheen to have the same transparency. Do you support a vaccine mandate for COVID-19? Do you support a vaccine passport?
Has expired. Senator Risch.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm right back to where I started on this thing. The very first time I sat down on the draft of this bill, President Trump had just announced that he had no confidence in the WHO, et cetera, et cetera. It became incredibly political and heated, just as this has become. This bill has nothing to do with mandatory vaccinations. It has nothing to do with the government collecting information on people. And with all due respect to my good friend from Texas, I would respectfully ask that we keep that out of this bill. This is to create an agency, an international agency that will respond differently and better than the WHO responded. We've tried to keep the politics out of this. I think the issues that you've raised are absolutely legitimate issues that should be taken up on a bill that actually deals with that. This bill does not, and indeed under the Rule 15 of the Senate, I have to agree with the chairman that it's not appropriate for this bill. We need to get, I would plead with people to focus on what this bill does and what important thing we're doing here for the world if we get another one of these pandemics. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Look, I think we all believe in liberty. We all believe in freedom. But my freedom to live, when it clashes against those who ultimately choose not to get vaccinated and to put my life and the life of my constituents and the life of my family at risk, that's a clash there of our individual freedoms. The reason for the CDC's announcement is not that vaccines don't work. It's that the Delta variant can be carried even by the vaccinated. And if you care about your fellow man, as the Bible teaches us, then ultimately you would choose to wear a mask so that you mitigate the possibility of infecting your fellow man. That's what the mandate, the recommendation is all about. But in any event, I will remind our colleagues, the question for the committee is, shall the decision of the chair be overturned? A yes vote means you wish to allow the amendment. A no vote means you agree with the chair that the amendment should not be overturned, should not be allowed. As such, I will vote no. All those in favor who say aye will, in essence, say they wish the amendment to proceed. With that,
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a recorded vote.
the recorded vote is requested. The clerk will call the roll. No by proxy.
Markey? No. Merkley? No. Booker? No. Scott? No. Van Hollen? No. Resch?
No.
Rubio? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Romney?
No by proxy.
Portman?
No by proxy.
Paul? Aye. Young?
Aye by proxy.
Barrasso?
Aye by proxy.
Cruz?
Aye.
Brown?
No by proxy.
My view on COVID is it is serious. We should take serious steps to combat it. We have taken extraordinary steps to combat COVID-19, including an unprecedented effort to develop vaccines, hundreds of millions of which have been administered, as we've come together and fought against this disease. But we've also seen stupid policies. We've seen lockdowns across this country that have shut down small businesses, destroyed restaurants, destroyed bars, destroyed generational businesses. We've seen schools shut down, 10 for over a year. Children who are falling behind academically, who are falling behind in reading, who are falling behind in math. And the children being hurt are disproportionately low income. They are disproportionately Hispanic and African American. And nonetheless, the edicts to shut down schools have continued. They were utterly unjustifiable. My view is simple. We should not have mandates. What does that mean? That means no mask mandates. That means no vaccine mandates. And I will say, you know, it was interesting as I was reading through this COVID bill, Section 107, talking about what foreign governments are doing. An awful lot of the description of foreign governments can apply to our own government. So Section 107 of this bill says certain foreign governments have taken measures in response to COVID-19 that violate the human rights of their citizens without clear public health justification. Well, I think you could delete the word foreign in that, because we've seen governments here domestically arbitrarily exercising power as well. This Section 107 also says governments using the COVID-19 pandemic as a pretext for repression have undermined democratic institutions, check. Debilitated institutions for transparency and public integrity, check. Quashed legitimate dissent. I might remind you that Anthony Fauci in those emails asked Facebook to silence anyone who said anything different than the government directive on speech, including if you suggested the origin of the Wuhan virus was actually at Wuhan, China, in a Chinese government lab. And Facebook willingly complied, censored that view. You're not allowed to have that view that this escaped from the government lab. Then, miraculously, a couple of months ago, the administration was forced to recognize, well, yeah, there's actually very significant evidence that the Wuhan virus escaped from a Chinese government lab in Wuhan, and beyond that it may well have been developed with government research with American taxpayer funding on gain-of-function research. Those views that were banned for a year are now acknowledged as having very significant scientific basis behind them. My view, there should be no mandates, no mask mandates, no vaccine mandates, and no vaccine passports. And what my amendment focuses on is just the last piece of it. Vaccine passports, and I will say finally, this should be a proposition that is bipartisan. The Biden administration at least claims to oppose vaccine passports. Jen Psaki at the White House said, let me be clear on this. I know there's a lot of questions. Psaki said, the government is not now, nor will we be, supporting a system that requires Americans to carry a credential. If that is right, if that is credible, then I would urge the committee to adopt my amendment prohibiting U.S. taxpayer funds from going to or the American government participating in an international body creating a vaccine passport that would be required for Americans traveling abroad.
I have a number of questions and concerns about the substance of this amendment. However, the text of this amendment is clearly outside the scope of the Foreign Relations Committee's jurisdiction. Indeed, the text is drawn directly from S. 1932, a bill sponsored by the senator from Texas that has been referred to the HELP Committee. This amendment prohibits the use of federal funds for the creation of a vaccine passport system or vaccine tracking database, including at the state level, and it requires that COVID-19 vaccination records be destroyed by all federal departments and agencies. Neither of these issues fall within our committee's jurisdiction. Accordingly, I rule this amendment out of order.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, I think that jurisdictional argument is not justifiable based on the underlying bill. The underlying bill is about policies engaging in a bilateral basis in response to COVID. This amendment is prohibiting participating in an international organization creating a vaccine passport. This bill talks about vaccine monitoring. And this amendment ensures that we're not establishing a federal government vaccine database that is monitoring U.S. citizens in violation of their privacy rights. This bill talks about enhancing transparency of health data, and I think the amendment would protect the privacy of health data from a vaccine passport. And this bill also talks about establishing partnerships with the private sector to improve pandemic preparedness and response. It addresses the same topic to prevent the U.S. government from working with a third party in the private sector to develop a vaccine passport and force it on the American people. And so accordingly, I appeal the ruling of the chair that the amendment is out of order.
The senator appeals the ruling of the chair that the amendment is not in order because